Revive FM or its management.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Muazzam Ali Sandhu, and this is our live show, Your Voice with Muazzam Ali Sandhu. We are having very important discussions today on the recent development in the European Parliament regarding a resolution passed against Pakistan. Also, we will discuss some other crises which is happening in Pakistan, such as the coronavirus. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have our guest from Pakistan, Barrister Needa Salam. She is one of the very vibrant and active member of the community, society, politician, activist, human rights activist, and very vocal personality. She will be representing actually that the responses like on this kind of the resolutions, what is her response, what is the observations and critical discussions on this special topic. So let me tell you one thing about the GSP. What is GSP? GSP is the generalized scheme of preferences plus the trade. That is the scheme given by the European Parliament to those countries who have who are underdeveloping countries, who are struggling with their economic issues and who has the low income level. There are few countries who are the beneficiary of this scheme. So one of them is Pakistan. So from all of them is Bolivia, Armenia, Cabo Verde, Kyrgyzstan, Paraguay, Pakistan, Mongolia, Philippines, and Sri Lanka. So, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is one of the biggest beneficiary of this scheme because Pakistani trade industry, export industry, the so big industry of the Pakistan relying on the European market. So they have the full rights to access the European market without having implications of the taxes. So it is kind of the free trade. And this scheme is only given to those countries who doesn't have any other free trade agreement with the European zone, and Pakistan, because the Pakistan doesn't have any other free trade agreement. And on the basis of this new development and resolutions, Pakistan is going to face the biggest challenges. Pakistan is going to face the biggest situations now, and they have to address that. And I admire the Pakistani government at the moment under the regime of the Imran Khan and his cabinet, who are conducting consecutive meetings and ijlas and different forums. They are trying to address the reservations of the European Parliament. So let's discuss all of these issues with our guest today. Assalamu alaikum, Ms. Needa Salam. Hello, I think our call has dropped. So hopefully will be reconnected very shortly. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Sindhu. How are you?
Oh, yes, I'm good. Thank you so much. Welcome to our studio. Due to some technical reasons, we do not have the video facility now, but very soon we will have you in our show with the live video streaming. So this issue, the GSP trade, Ms. Needa, GSP plus trade scheme, which is given and granted by the European Parliament to the Pakistan, and that was the recent development happened on 28th of April, wherein they said that they can take their grant back from Pakistan. GSP plus status can be removed from Pakistan. So that will be very big news for the whole industry. The market can go crash, and the traders, the other commerce industry, the Chamber of Commerces, the exporters, importers, they are all worried about this development. So how you look on these things? How you comment?
Sindhu, actually, diplomatic relations between Pakistan and European Union were always present. European Economic Community was established in 1962, and in 1982, European Commission opened its offices in Pakistan and upgraded to European Commission delegation. So, in order to enhance Pakistan capacity on the World Trade Organization related issues, a trade-related technical assistance program was launched in 2004. European Union sending an election observation missions constantly from 2000 to 2018 to strengthen democratic ties and process with Pakistan. In 2006, the Council of the European Union called Afghanistan and Pakistan to deepen relations and to cooperate closely to deal with insecurity in border areas.
Right.
On 1st December 2009, with the Lisbon Treaty established, became the delegation of the European Union into Pakistan. European Union is Pakistan's biggest export destination. In 2019, the European Union accounted for 33% of Pakistani external trade, with Pakistani export to European Union reaching 7+ billion, composed by mainly leather, textile, electric products or equipments, pharmaceutical products, and chemical products. So, European Union and Pakistan relations are the international relations between common foreign policy and trade relations. Since January 2014, Pakistan has benefited from generalized system Preference Plus. The generalized system of Preference Plus grant full removal of tariffs on over 66% of European Union tariff lines. Yeah.
Okay, so Miss Nida, can you please tell to our audience that this development about the resolutions, if they removed the Pakistan special status, GSP plus trade status, so how the Pakistan trade industry and all of these industries you just explained in your words, how all of these people will be affected? And how much?
All right. To benefit from generalized system plus, Pakistan has demonstrated progress towards implementation of 27 global conventions related to good governance, human rights, and environmental protection. So I strongly believe that as European Union is a great partner in terms of export, in terms of as I said, a very good 66% export actually. It will leave an impact on Pakistan in terms of economy. For a time being.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello. I think there is a little technical difficulties, so we will be right back very soon. The line has dropped with Miss Nida. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think there are the voice is a little bit double. Did you turn your speaker on?
No, it's okay now. Actually, I think.
So this is the Needa Salam. She was just talking about the recent development and how the industry of Pakistan and the Chamber of Commerce of Pakistan and the different exporters will be affected. Yes, Needa, are you here now?
Yes, I am here. Yes, sorry about it.
Okay, so how you think that these are all of the industries, the exporters and the importers and the other foreign exchanges, these people getting panic after this news?
Well, yes, if you consider the businesses in Pakistan and all that businessmen who export some surgical equipment, who export leather, textile, especially pharmaceutical section of the society, yes, they are worried at the moment that how this resolution going to impact further on Pakistan, and especially in terms of the economy, in terms of the business, in terms of the money.
Exactly. And let's talk about the resolution itself. There says that because all of this special status, GSP status, it is always be conditional to all the to the country who are under developing country and has the low income level according to the World Bank reports. So because Pakistan has been given this status in 2018, and do you think that the if uh, they believe that the Pakistan will follow the international laws, Pakistan will try to uphold the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of United Nations, Pakistan will uphold the human rights, Pakistan will make sure the protection to the minorities, protections to the women, protection to the children, and protection to all other religions and faiths must be provided and given, and safety and security and safeguarding to all other religions apart from the Muslims will be the responsibility of the governments and the law enforcement agencies. But they accused and they objected that these rights are not given to and not properly administered by the government, and the government has failed to give the protections to the minorities. Government has failed to control the domestic violence and prosecute the criminals who involved in domestic violence and who involved in the crime against the humanity, crime against the minorities. So what is your responses in terms of that?
Sindhu, actually, the resolution demanded Pakistan to allow space for religious freedom and connected with Kasur case. I strongly believe that there is a religious freedom in Pakistan. And yes, I agree to a certain extent that some incidents back in the days occurred in the past. And on that, to pass a full parliamentary resolution is not fair on Pakistan. I strongly believe that this European resolution reflects a lack of understanding in the main context of blasphemy law, and on that, connecting with current religious sensitivity of the country is not fair. And secondly, the second very alarming point in the resolution was increase in accusation of blasphemy online and offline in Pakistan over the past year. Third was the human right protection for journalists and freedom of speech. I strongly believe that, you know what, Sindhu, I have experienced the Western Wall. I have studied, lived my whole life there in England. I have never seen freedom of speech for the media the way I'm experiencing in Pakistan. I have experienced from Gordon Brown to Boris Johnson eras in the United Kingdom and the BBC, CNN, and Sky News, Fox News, and all that. Can you imagine, like, the journalists, they are very, very independent from all perspectives, great? They ask the question directly to the Prime Minister. They're very vocal on human rights. So the Constitution of Pakistan gave equal rights, protection of freedom of, the protection of fundamental freedom, and people are exercising that. Look, Pakistan being a parliamentary democracy with vibrant civil society, free media, independent judiciary, all are committed towards the human rights.
Yes, I to some extent I agree with you, but I disagree on few points. For example, we all can see that there is self censorship. The media outlets have come under the pressure from the authorities not to criticize government institutions or the judiciary, and in several cases in 2020, the government regulatory agencies blocked cable operators and television channels that had aired critical programs. So there is still need to restore the human rights and the freedom of expression, the free press, and these kind of things.
You know what? 2017 is the past. Talk about today. Talk about president.
No, 2020. I said 2020.
Okay, 2020. Well, according to my research and observation, I don't think so anything happened like that during Khan's administration so far. You know what? If you observe, or even if international media, international allies in the Western world and the community has observed Pakistani media, you will realize that how independent is the media. Can you ever imagine in Pakistan, a third world country, the progressing country, how autonomously media is performing their duties? You can check their talk shows, in evening talk shows, that how independently they criticize the government, they criticize the system, they criticize even the judiciary to a certain extent. I strongly believe that European Parliament should not hide under the doctrines of human rights and under the doctrines of freedom of speech and pressurize Pakistan on human rights. Because what about human rights in Palestine? What about human rights in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, and in India, especially in relation to the minorities, Dalits, Muslims, and Christians in occupied Kashmir? When it comes to human rights, then I strongly believe that European parliamentarians should believe on equity and speak on equity rather than just to hide themselves under the umbrella of human rights for the third world.
I agree with you that there are so many human rights breaches across the world, and especially, do you think that if you open up that debate now, do you think that this kind of the resolutions is maybe muddled within the Islamophobia as well? Because the worldwide there is a wave of Islamophobia, and one of the person who presented this resolution, he is from Swedish, and he is the Swedish Prime Minister has blamed him. He's from the fascist group. So, do you think that this is part of the Islamophobia, and there is any impact of the Islamophobia of these resolutions?
Well, Sindhu, Western world and communities need to understand the dynamics internally and the narrative of Islamophobia. If I consider Islamophobia and the concepts and the doctrines in the Western world, we have experienced the statement of the French president, Macron.
Yeah.
And you know what? I strongly condemn that. I strongly believe that on the name of the religion, on the name of the Islamophobia, the Western allies are trying to divide the people. They are trying to divide the humanity. They are trying to divide their nations.
Exactly.
You know what? I have said many times in my other interviews that the Western allies are not ready to understand the sensitivity of the issue, the sensitivity of the concept of Islamophobia. You know what? Pakistan has paid the highest price in the world on planet Earth in the eradication of the terrorism. If this sort of terrorism Western world will experience ever in future, like on the division of the religious concepts and the doctrines, will they be able to cope? Will they be able to manage? No, not at all, because they cannot think further than how Pakistan came out of this problem. Because I strongly believe that the world leaders need to educate their communities, they need to educate their nations in relation to the tolerance, in relation to tranquility, peace. I believe that. When it comes to religion, because religion is very personal. When you speak about human rights, so you literally allow people to exercise their religion without any forceful implications on them.
Exactly. So I agree with you what you are saying on the point of the human rights and these kind of the values. They must consider generally, and they should not consider. They should not narrow the space for the Pakistan in terms of the blasphemy law. That is the Pakistan internal matter, number one, and number two is the blasphemy law belongs to very personal religious and faith related things. So I agree on some extent, but what
we have a constitution of Pakistan. We respect that. We are people of values, culture, strong tradition and high religious morals, and we will never compromise on the laws related to sanctity or finality of prophethood in any manner, right? Because the Western world, whatever they're observing on social media, they are taking perceptions from that. Pakistan is a majority Muslim state. We have obviously majority Muslim state is a sensitive country, right? people here are very sensitive towards their religion, right? So on certain elements or certain incidents, unintentional incident occurred in the country. If the European Parliament is planning to, after passing this resolution, planning any sort of sanctions on Pakistan, something like that, it means that they are not able to understand the actual problem. They're not able to understand that to what extent they are moving in terms of dividing their own people. It's not about Pakistan, the Muslims in Pakistan. It's about the Muslims across the globe.
The Pakistan, the human rights minister, Shiri Mazari, she tweeted very important things. She said that it is unfortunate that the co-sponsor of the EU's anti-Pakistan resolution was a member of a party that the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven referred to as a neo-fascist single-issue party with Nazi and racist roots. Question now is whether GSP Plus is getting muddied in Islamophobia. So yeah, these things as highlighted before the Pakistan cabinet, and it is under the discussions, and they are considering that. But my question is on this point: when we say that there are so many issues in the rest of the world, there are so many other human rights issues, human rights breaches, rest of the world. But what about the people who, the countries who has been given this GSP special status? So the countries you mentioned, they are not part of that. The countries, it is the Pakistan, Armenia, Bolivia, Sri Lanka. So all of these countries, India and other countries which you mentioned, it is not part of that. So how do you think that the Pakistan must not make sure that they will uphold the rule of law, they will uphold the other human rights? Of course, every country's law and the constitution is the most important thing for the citizen of that country, and the rest of the world can only object on any law if it is against the international law, if it is against the fundamental human rights. On one side, the fundamental human rights giving the protection of the religions, protection of everyone's respect and regards to everyone's faith and belief. So this is on the one point, and the other side, they are trying to repeal the law from Pakistan, the act of parliament, which is the blasphemy law. So why do you think that they are still not giving the respect and honor to Pakistan's sovereignty and its sovereign parliament, who are passing these laws?
All right. As far as the human rights are concerned, I'm not denying that, yes, there are certain sort of breaches like domestic violence, honor killings, that's fine. But the ratio is not that high for honor killing and all that. They are like, the ratio is very, 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 very low, great? So if, as far as rule of law is concerned, as a custodian of law, I strongly believe that it should be prevailed from all perspectives, great? Whereas there was one point in the resolution which you have mentioned on blasphemy law and all that, I strongly believe that as in resolution it was mentioned that blasphemy laws are misused by extremist groups and those wishing to settle personal scores. I strongly disagree, because the judicial system of Pakistan provided the justice instance. For instance, in the case of Rimsha Masih, in the case of Asia Bibi, the highest court of the country, according to the constitution of Pakistan and on the evidences, they freed these minorities. Asia Bibi settled in Canada, Rimsha Masih settled in Canada, great? So how they can say that rule of law never prevailed in Pakistan? I will disagree. I strongly believe, yes, human rights should be protected. Pakistan's constitution, part 2, protects human rights from all perspectives. There's no doubt there were certain incidents back in the days in terms of the domestic violence and all that. So domestic violence is a worldwide issue. It's not only the issue commonly, it's not a common issue in Pakistan. Domestic violence is common in most of the Eastern World Asian countries. I strongly condemn that. But again, we have the courts, we have the legal system, we have the constitution, and I strongly believe that it, as you said about domestic violence, psychological abuse. the courts protect them when people bring their cases to the court of law, and the laws are there, especially to protect women. We have a human rights ministry who closely monitor all the abuses of human rights from all perspectives. So,
my perspective is that, like, on one certain incident highlighted by the international media, and then abusing the country, blaming the country for that, it's not acceptable in any manner.
Okay,
And
let's.
when you mentioned about when you mentioned about India and other countries, I agree. But what about when it comes to human rights? Then talk about human rights in terms of universal manner. Then talk about Afghanistan. What about the human rights? Where is the European Parliament? What about Syria? What about Iraq? And what about those European countries who are exporting arms? And that arms were used against weak women, innocent children in the wars and all that. What about the human rights? When you're talking about human rights and hiding under the umbrella of human rights, they talk about human rights worldwide. Then do accept it. Do not pinpoint one country. This is not acceptable.
Okay, let's talk about one point, which is I strongly agree with that, and that is biggest issue in Pakistan's blasphemy law. So I don't have an issue with the blasphemy law. The blasphemy law is exactly reflecting the people's faith and emotions and belief. Okay, and this is the act of the parliament. This is not my job. This is not your job to make a law. There is a country, there is a
Yes.
parliament who are lawmakers, legislative assemblies who design the law, who make the law. There are technocrats, both houses of the parliaments, upper house, lower house. So there is a proper mechanism how the law becomes and how the law progress and proceed towards becoming the act of the parliament. So my point of view is that the law is there, but there is one issue, the misuse of the law, because there are so many people who are trying to attack to their own opponents on the basis of their personal interest, on the basis of their personal grudges, and they accuse their opponents for the blasphemy. They accuse the other side that they committed the crime under the blasphemy law, and the mob be agitated and they protested against that, and there is no any protection to those people who are accused by the accuser. So without listening to the roots, that who is the accuser, or what evidences the accuser have, and what kind of the charge sheet has been presented to the court of law or to the police, without taking the matter to the police or to the proper court of law and getting to the proper trial, whether or not the accusations or the allegations were right or wrong, the people would kill the person before it is presented to the court. So what do you think that how the country, the law enforcement agencies, the governments and the enforcement agencies, how they will control these things, because this is
All
one
right.
of the biggest
So
issue.
okay. Yes, let's assume for a while that people use blasphemy law for their personal interest. Just assume.
Okay.
Then the court of law is there to provide justice, and we have seen justice has been done to the Rimsha Masih case by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Okay, we have seen justice has been done in the Asia Bibi case by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Okay, when you said that before bringing anyone into the court of law, their life is in danger. All the enforcement agencies of Pakistan, all the institutions of Pakistan, whenever the cases usually bring into the light in terms of blasphemy, they protect that certain person. We have seen in the past, we have seen these two high profile cases of the country, Rimsha Masih and Asia Bibi cases. Both are enjoying their lives in Western world at the moment. Their lives are safe. Great. As far as courts are concerned, I strongly believe on the judicial system of the Pakistan in relation to the blasphemy laws. And in the decision of the Asia Bibi case, the judgment given by the honorable Supreme Court judges, if the Western allies and the world leaders will get a time to read that, they will understand how beautifully they narrated the religious concept, how beautifully they narrated the human right concept. Because Islam, because you know what? what I have assumed that this European parliamentarians, they are combining Islamophobia on human rights and then targeting Pakistan on because certain religious groups in Pakistan are quite sensitive in relation to the religion, and they're just pinpointing Pakistan. This is not right. I strongly will request European parliamentarians do read the judgment of the Honorable Highest Court of this country, how the rule of law was prevailed in the past. And we do trust as a Pakistani, as a barrister, as a custodian of the law, that our law enforcement agencies are performing their duties with all honesty, because we strongly believe that humanity is above than everything or anything, no matter what culture, what background, what religion you are from. In resolution, I came across one point by European parliamentarians that minorities are not protected in Pakistan. I strongly disagree. Minorities are living with most autonomous rights in this country. They gave the reference of our laws in terms of that minorities have got different laws. Yes, for them we have different laws because on terms of the practice of the religion. For instance, the divorce system and the laws in relation to the divorce in Islam is different as compared to Christianity. So that's why the laws on divorce, for instance, for minority as a Christian, that's why they have a different laws, because to protect their rights according to their religion, the code of law. So yeah, my perspective is that.
Exactly, I agree with you on many things. One thing which is worried about that, I appreciate you referred to cases wherein the justice has been delivered, and that is because the exemplary and the European Parliament, before passing such resolutions, they should consider that points as well. But what about the mobs? What about there are few groups and the people who are trying to abuse the system, who are trying to abuse the law, rule of law, and who are trying to abuse the blasphemy law on the basis of their personal grudges and interest. So how do you think that, apart from the justice delivered by the governments and by the prosecution and the court of justice, but how the people can be given any kind of the right directions in terms of not to abuse the law, and whether or not have the court of justice given any sentences to those people who presented any wrong accusations under the blasphemy law?
You know what? All the if you're referring towards the people who try to abuse the blasphemy law for their personal interests, the courts always gave justice. The courts always stood with the justice to prevail. Great. Secondly, I strongly believe that our civil society and media, that played a very important role. The media always stood with humanity and always stood with the rule of law. And those people who try to articulate it for their benefit on the grounds of the blasphemy laws, I don't think so. The civil society, the citizens of Pakistan, who are majority Muslims, on the name of the humanity and equal rights to practice a religion for everyone, they always stood with right. They always stood with truthfulness. They always stood towards faithfulness of an individual. So I think the law enforcement agency never encouraged that people to use the law for their personal interests. And I have never seen that as well, because we have seen the two landmark judgments in Pakistani by the Pakistani highest court, Supreme Court, on blasphemy. So justice was prevailed from all perspectives.
So don't you think that the government should introduce any kind of the special courses or any human rights teachings or any special trainings to certain institutes, that the schools, colleges, the people should not abuse any system, any law against the minorities, or any this kind of the concept?
Yeah.
You must agree on few points that this happened, and if in terms of anyone can use these kind of accusations and blames to against their own opponents, how the people will react, because the people are getting out of control on the basis of their belief and emotions. They become more emotional. They don't consider the law. They don't consider anything. They, I'm not talking about all of the people, but there are some people who become more emotional, and they are not believing on the court of law, and they're not believing in the enforcement agencies. They want to take the law in their own hands, and they want to deal the issue by their own hands, without ifs or buts, or without giving any justification, without giving and provided any evidences. So how the governments, because this is the responsibility of the government, and this is the responsibility of our institutions and of our influential people of the society, to educate the people, to give the awareness to the people that even our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a hadith, he said that do not pass any news without investigation or without proper verification. So how the people believe of any single things without investigation or without verifications. And I think nowadays social media is also, and internet is also, one of the biggest sources to spreading some conspiracies and false newses and accusations. And I have seen that so many people accusing other people's on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, uh, people calling other people's Ahmadi, or the supporter of the Ahmadi, or or the supporter of other religions. So this is not the matter of the support. This is the matter of the principle. This is the matter of the humanity. That humanity is above all religions. So how you respond with those things?
All right. First of all, I would like to add something. The minorities in Pakistan, the Christians and Hindus, they are enjoying all the tastes of lives, from professional to the personal. They're exercising all the human rights from all perspectives. First of all, great, because I have so many Christian friends. I have so many friends from the minority who were born and brought up in Pakistan. Pakistan is their home, like for us, great. And our national flag represents minorities as well. Don't you think so? The color in our national flag and the Constitution of Pakistan protected minorities as well. So, on one hand, I strongly disagree with the resolution passed by the European Parliament parliamentarians that minorities are not protected in Pakistan. I disagree with that. Great. Secondly, yes, I will agree with Sindhu that the Pakistani government should take initiatives to spread the awareness among the young generation in relation to the human rights to protect, in relation to blasphemy laws, and in relation towards the peace between communities, peace between 2 to 3 religions, great, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, peace in relation towards the tolerance. As far as amnesties are concerned, we have a very clear stance in our Constitution of Pakistan, and we are standing by that stand from all perspectives, and religiously as well. We Muslims are very sensitive in terms of religion, great. So we cannot compromise anything in relation to our great beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, in any manner when it comes to Ahmadis, or when it comes to, you can say that, you know that the recent incident in France, how the cartoon was cashed and all that, and the statement from French president. So things like that can only fuel up. Things like that cannot create a peace between countries, communities, and societies in any manner. I agree with that, but government of Pakistan need to work more in terms of having workshops for the young generation, in terms of having courses for the young generation on the religion, on the human rights, on the peace, on the tolerance, and all that. Then we will be able to live together in one society in the context of the peace.
Okay. I agree with you on the few points that you mentioned about any kind of the publication of the cartoons or any speech which will be hurting to the emotions of the Muslims. That is actually the breach of the human rights, and that is the breach of the fundamental human rights and Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and all the that is against. There are already rights by when he mentioned was in fact contesting those protests, and he was upholding that action, which was in fact the breach of the Muslim rights, which was the breach of Muslims' fundamental issues and things. So I believe that the Muslims have very rightly to protest against those actions, which is hurting their emotions, which is hurting their faith, because the human rights give the protection, and human rights give the protections to everyone, faith and religions, and not to discriminate anyone on the basis of the religion, and not to emotionally attack on anyone on the basis of the religion. So I believe that on many contexts we are exactly rightful, and the Muslims of Pakistan are rightful, who are raising the voice against such actions. So do you want to comment on that?
All right. Yes, sorry, there was disconnection. So I just got reconnected. So you know what, Muazzam, whatever I've perceived from your recent conversation, because there was a disconnect, the call was disconnected. Yes, Sidhu, I agree with that. The peace is the only element in the whole universe that can connect the people, that can connect the borders, that can connect people from different backgrounds, culture, religion. If we consider the Europe as they're out of the Brexit now, as 28 member states, and the way they are fueling up the concepts of Islamophobia, do you believe that they will be able to tackle that? The European Union, whole 28 member states, they're not able to tackle the racism since last 89 to 100 years now, right? Or might be more than that. Will they be able to tackle the conflict on the name of the religion to divide their nations? I strongly believe that no. Why? Because in Pakistan, I have experienced and seen and researched the sectarian conflict. I have seen the war on terror here, and this region is the strongest region in the world in terms to be out of that. Our Western allies and the world leaders can only speak about it, but they are not able to understand the sensitivity of the matter. It is very easy to say Islamophobia, great. But again, they should be scared. The Western politicians should be scared in terms not to welcome anything in the young generation in terms of division. And if that division will spread that far in the Western world, I don't think so they will be able to tackle with that in any manner.
Exactly. So one more thing,
because we have recently seen George Floyd, Stephen Lawrence, Norway shootings, and all that in the past on the name of racism. So imagine if the young generation in the Western world will stand on the name of their religion and the religious conflicts and all that. If the politician will indulge them by taking the side of one religion or one messenger or whatever, like Macron did, it means that they're welcoming the young generation towards terrorism. They're welcoming the young generation to be aggressive and assertive. Great. And if your world leaders will do that, I don't think so they'll be able to tackle with this problem, because Pakistan recently came out of terrorism, war on terrorism, sectarian conflict. It's really, really bad. And it's not easy to be out of it. It took almost 20 to 25 years for Pakistan to tackle the war on terror and all that.
Exactly. So one more thing, which is very concerning for me, which I want to share with you, and I want you to comment on that.
Yeah.
The GSP status, that is a trade actually grant and status given to the countries who have the low income level. But why they are making conditions to keep the or the carry on with this status to the beneficiary country like Pakistan, why they are relating to the Pakistan internal legal issues or a blasphemy law that is directly attacked to the Pakistan sovereignty. And these things are not related to each other. One is a trade law, one is a trade grant. On one hand side, you are giving a trade grant and the GSP special status to the Pakistan, which is very useful for Pakistan to grow in the world and emerge in the international economy and emerge in the international industries. And the Pakistan will continue growing and developing, because Pakistan is a developing country and it is trying to develop their trades into the European market and the rest of the world. But why on earth the European Parliament is concerned to keep having that status to Pakistan and relating to that with the conditions to remove the blasphemy law? That is very direct attack to the Pakistan sovereignty and the Parliament. Don't you think that?
Yes. Well, Sidhu, I would like to clarify here for everyone that the Khan's administration, the current government of Pakistan, will never be pressurized by the Western allies and the world leaders, the Western world leaders, because Pakistan is a nuclear power. You know, it's the first nuclear power in the Muslim world. Pakistan is a game changer in the region. Pakistan is the backbone in the Asia. Great. And I strongly believe that the Foreign Office, the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, he should explicit to the Western world that we will never allow you to interfere in our internal matters. Great. And as far as when it comes to the constitution of Pakistan, how they can expect like to be pressurized? For us, constitution is everything. Like for them, their laws plays a very important role. Great. Secondly, Pakistan never interfered their internal matters in terms of exporting arms to Afghanistan. Great. In terms of the failed Afghanistan war, in terms of the failed Iraq war, in terms of the, you know what, I think Pakistan Human Rights Ministry, Shireen Azari, she also should explicit to the Western world and the Western leaders that we will not let you to hide under the umbrella of the human rights and to blame Pakistan as well. And I think the Western leaders are not taking this thing serious that Pakistan is a game changer, which it is now becoming a game changer in the region. And they need to understand, the past eras, the Nawaz Sharif, Zardari's and other eras, they were very different. The upcoming era and the upcoming government, this government and the next, obviously we're expecting Khan to rule again, they will never compromise on the morals. They will never compromise on dignity. They will never compromise on integrity. Great. This politician, Imran Khan, he not only gave a hope to the country, to the people, and brought the economy in a better manner. He's a man who always stood on his decisions and always stood on equity. And when it comes to the Pakistani law, the constitution, I'm very surprised how the Western world is expecting them to change the constitution and all that, and to bring amendments. What and on the name of the religion? I think they forgot that Pakistan is majority Muslim country, right? And it's not like the other Muslim world. We are like nuclear power. They need to understand this thing, which they're taking in a very light manner, which they shouldn't be actually.
And secondly, I second your opinion. One more thing which is very important: the European Parliament must give regards to the Pakistan governments who are trying their best to deliver the rule of law and maintain the rule of law and discipline within the society and try to protect the rights of the people. And all of the allegations, whatever mentioned in their resolutions, that the breach of human rights, breach of the International Convention, breach of the covenant, all of those things, which I want, it's not enough time to refer the whole resolutions, but my viewpoint is the government is not part of that. The Pakistan government and the state of the Pakistan, it is not part of that. They are independently trying to uphold the rule of law, trying to uphold their constitution in the country and trying to maintain the human rights within the society. Yes, the people who are in breach of the human rights, who are in breach of the land laws of the Pakistan, they are there are agencies in Pakistan, the law enforcement agencies, the police is there, and the prosecution department is there, who will be prosecuting those people, and there are the independent court of justice who will administer the justice within the society and uphold the justice in the society. Yes, there are few issues which still need to be addressed by the government and need to take more actions after these reservations and these resolutions of the parliament. The governments need to take some strong action plan against those people who are trying to abuse the blasphemy law. So because there shouldn't be any tolerance to abuse the blasphemy law. Apart from that, I don't agree with the European Parliament's resolutions.
Yeah, you know what? Like when it comes to human rights, what about the human rights in France? Not allowing Muslim women to cover her face, which is according to the Islamic their religion is a sign of modesty. When it comes to human rights, why there's a double standard? Why there's a double standard for the Eastern world, Asian world, as compared to the Western world? Whenever France wanted to twist with human rights, they can by bringing the changes in the national law on the name of the fake national security threats. Right? So, like, I strongly believe that European parliamentarians are double-faced at the moment, and there's double standard, because for them the human rights, where is the human rights for them when it comes to weak women, innocent children in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq, in occupied Kashmir? Where is the human right then? When it comes to the blasphemy law, I strongly believe that it's our internal matter, and our foreign office should be very clear with the Western world, Western allies, that we will not let you to interfere, in our internal matters.
Okay,
anymore,
what is the way forward for the governments, that how they will deal with this resolution and how they will have any? Is there any delegation is going to the European Parliament from the Pakistan, or they are making any lobby against that resolutions? How they will respond to that?
Well, I strongly believe that the Foreign Office must be working on it, and the Foreign Office will definitely respond to that. And you know what? Personally, what I according to my research, I don't think so. This resolution is going to bring any impact. I don't think so. This resolution will bring in time, because Pakistan and European Union share a nature of a trade, a nature of a benefit, a give and take relation in terms of export and import. Great. So if they're going to bring some implications on Pakistan, then what about the money? What about their interest? And all that. So they need to understand from all that perspectives.
Exactly. No, you are absolutely right. And the European Parliament, I think they passed the resolution against the Pakistan in haste and not considering all of the elements. The Pakistan government must take this matter before the European Parliament, and their response must be considered by the European Parliament, which is very vital, because if the Pakistan's GSP status will be removed, then the Pakistan's economic situations and all of the international traders who are working in Pakistan with the European countries, it will be affected.
Pakistan always wanted to have a peace. Either it's Afghanistan, either it's Iran, either it's India. Recently, you know that Russia extended its hand. Putin extended his hand towards Pakistan. And in news and in media, like the term was given that Putin offered a blank check to Pakistan, blank check in the terms that we are ready to have a bilateral good relations. Pakistan have got multilateral relations now with Turkey, with Malaysia, China, deeper than the sea, higher than the mountain sort of relations we have, right? So Pakistan always wanted to bring peace, either like internally and externally as well, because Pakistan literally realized that we want to progress. We want to progress in technology and in educating our youth. We want to progress and want to compete with the world
world at a next larger scale. So I strongly believe that our Foreign Office recently passed a statement on this resolution as well, and they will be more clearer with the passage of the time, because I strongly believe that this era is an era of the war of resources. No more nuclear wars. COVID-19, is a good example of how one little virus locked down the whole world. So now it comes to resources. Who have resources in terms of the world? And then the countries and the nations. So now the European Party, I strongly believe that after having a Brexit, European Union is flying in the sky at the moment, and a lot of dynamics they are not ready to accept, and a lot of internal problems within the Europe they are not ready to accept. They believe that 28 member states together we are more stronger, more powerful. Agreed to a certain extent in terms of money, in terms of a central bank and all that, but they need to understand they can't have a harsh relations with everywhere across the globe, and especially Pakistan always have a very, very significant standing in terms of relations with the Western allies and in terms within the region as well.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. The thing is, you very rightly mentioned during the COVID-19, when the all of the world is emerging together and helping each other and supporting each other, and especially supporting the developing countries to maintain their economic crisis and to meet their economic crisis. But unfortunately, in this very critical time frame, when the European Union and the rest of the world, the Pakistan is facing the COVID-19 crisis and issues and lockdown and so many things going on there. This news comes from the European Parliament, the resolution against Pakistan. And second thing is, the European Parliament must have been considered one more thing after the Brexit, because the Europe has, the UK is not the part of the European Union, and the Commonwealth countries and the rest of the world is open now with the UK to make an independent agreement for the trade. But this kind of the resolutions is giving a huge impact on the European side, because they are not considering the whole circumstances in front of them, and they are too fast reaching this kind of the very critical resolution against a country and against a state, and based on the false allegations and wrong allegations.
Very true.
Exactly.
Very true. You know what, Sandhu? You know what? This pandemic was a lesson for the world leaders, for the politicians, for nations, for the countries that where you are standing. You're not able to protect your people, your healthcare system, your economy, your internal affairs, and you're spending money on the wars. You're spending money on import and export of the arms. You're spending money on diminishing humanity. Great. So this pandemic was a learning for the world if they want to learn. Great. Secondly, as you said about the European Union and the Brexit and all that, yes, UK is planning to extend export and import new legislation they're going to bring as well in after a couple of months in relation to have a good relations with the Commonwealth countries and all that. So UK was always humble towards Pakistan and the politicians from Blair
yes.
era. To Boris, to Theresa May, and all that. What else I can say about European parliamentarians? Because as I said, they are flying high to sky after Brexit, and they believe that they will conquer the world, which is not possible, and they're living in a bubble at the moment. Just having, taking little clips from social media and making the narratives on that, and accusing a country, a nuclear power, a backbone, a country who has paid the highest price in the world on planet Earth in terms of terrorism and all, and accusing that country like this, it's not acceptable. And Pakistan is having 67% youth, right? And internet is accessible to everyone. They do read, they do write, they do research. So European parliamentarians need to understand this era and this phase of Pakistan is different than 15 years back or 20 years back.
Exactly. Just a few stats about the coronavirus situation in Pakistan.
agree and understand. We have huge population, high poverty. We are developing. We are developing in terms of human resources and all that. Great. We are not developed like Western world. We are working on good technology to provide and all that. So I strongly believe that you need to understand, like every young citizen of Pakistan is very closely observing their stance, is very closely observing their narrative on Islamophobia, and the narrative towards a country, towards all the stands, so they need to be very, very careful, because by this they're trying to divide the nations. By this they will welcome terrorism. By this they will welcome hatred and intolerance in societies.
Yes, Ms. Nida, this is a very end of our show. But before I finish, I just want to highlight a few things in terms of the coronavirus. I think you
Yes.
have described the whole issue of the European resolutions in very detail, and I believe that we will have another show next time with the live video, because our viewers want to.
Definitely.
Yes, our viewer wants to watch this very important information and listen all of this live with you. In terms of the coronavirus, Pakistan is also one of the country alongside with the India who is facing the critical crises and issues with the COVID-19, and the current death are the data according to the world meter. It is 18,429. And the current cases, it is more than 800,000 cases in Pakistan. However, as you are aware that the vaccine program worldwide is acknowledged and adopted by the world leaders, and especially in the UK, more than 45 million people has been vaccinated and administered. Half of them has been given the double dose. In Pakistan, there is 222 million populations approximately, just assume, and the vaccination only has been given only 2.1 million people. And whereas the young working age from 18 to 44 are 112 million, and the older working age between 45 to 64 is the 81 million, and rest the 65 and over there are 40 million. So but the vaccine is only given to 2.1%. So this is very alarming and very critical situations. You remember, and
Sindhu,
you must
I would
aware.
like to add.
Yes.
I would like to add, the government of Pakistan is working on it on immediate emergency basis. The NCOC is the national response into the COVID-19 crisis that combines the best feature of the federalism without the burden of its limitation. NCOC is essentially the nerve center through which the real-time data about COVID-19 has flowed. Every day, federal government and other four provinces came together to examine the data and identify the measures need to take it.
Right.
The Khan's narrative of lives versus livelihood and smart lockdown was mocked by many, but in reality, it helped the nationwide. Khan government created the category of subsidy and that helped the poor people with the title of ASAS program to observe the SOPs Pakistan Army is hugely contributing to the society while making sure that people should follow SOPs. Besides that, very importantly, I would like to mention that during pandemic, Pakistan started producing their own ventilators. I agree, the situation in our neighbors in India is very devastating. It's very heartening, it's very saddening. But Pakistan is quite far away from that situation. Pakistan is ready at the moment to deal with any emergency. That's why our army is playing a very important role in the streets of Pakistan in terms to make sure that people should follow SOPs, to make sure that all the recommendations by the NCOC should be followed in proper manner.
Right. And don't you think that there are a vast majority of the people who are still believing on the conspiracy theories? They are not believing in coronavirus exists. They are not believing in the the effectiveness of the vaccination and importance of the vaccination. And the government,
I agree.
how the government is dealing with
I
that.
agree.
I agree. It depends. As I said that certain people in certain societies are not having full experience and exposure towards the reality, and they're not ready to accept it because of their own perceptions. So it's very difficult to convince our people. That's why our state institutions are working on that. The Khan administration, the Khan administration recently introduced helplines. You recently introduced awareness program through Tiger Force, where young people were given a task to spread the awareness among people like who are not ready to accept it and be considered as a myth. But this is not only in Pakistan; it is in different parts of the Europe as well. If you consider Poland, if you consider certain other parts as well, Malaysia, Asian countries, different parts of India as well. So that's perception, but in reality, COVID-19 was very devastating, and everyone should learn a lesson out of it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Needa, for your time today. And
thank you, Sindhu. It was always my privilege to be a part of your show, and you're doing a very great job. And your opinion was always quite balanced, and you always speak the reality. And people in Pakistan literally admired you in terms of your reality to speak up.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. And actually, you are a very vocal person, and I really need you in my future shows. I want you to highlight few issues in terms of the children in our next show. The children education. There are millions of children. They are still not in school, and it is very.
I would like to apologize for the bad internet connection today. I would like to apologize to keep you on waiting.
No, it's okay. I understand that it's sometimes it happens.
Thank you to you and your great team, all your team. Who waited with patience. You have a very great team, by the way. Highly appreciated.
Oh, thank you so much. We're having a pleasure to having you today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
If you want to advertise your business on Revive FM, then visit www.revivefm.co.uk. Alternatively, contact our sales team now on 079 44 56 5616. That's 079 44 56 5616.
Let's connect with the Holy Quran. Minhaj Dawah Project distributes the Holy Quran in plain simple English for free. You can donate £3 and sponsor a Quran to a loved one, a neighbour, a colleague or a friend. We distribute Qurans totally free of charge across the whole UK, including in prisons. Please call us now to contribute on 0300 030 1951 or email us on dawah@minhajuk.org.
The Career Link Project is a free employment and careers service aimed at supporting young BAME women to navigate a path towards a successful future. If you're 16 or over and currently out of work, you could receive up to 10 months of